The nightly ritual of bathing and reading bedtime stories to my sons, Brian, age 4, and Terry, age 3, was accomplished. My wife, Laura, and I usually alternated in the bathing process, but I almost always asked to read the bedtime stories because the boys thought my voice for creatures and monsters was more realistic. Truth be told, I really loved storytelling because I was warm and cozy, lying in bed with my boys on either side of me and giving them my undivided attention. Since neither of the boys could read, it also gave me the opportunity to change the stories to reflect current events or the boys' behavior that day. However, they were bright kids, usually catching me cheating and forcing me to go back and read the story correctly. Today, Terry had already fallen asleep, and Brian was napping as well. It was so peaceful and cozy that I closed my eyes for a second and didn't wake up for 2 hours. Carefully as possible, I tucked Brian into his own bed and kissed both boys goodnight. I closed Huckleberry Finn, returning it to the shelf of children's books, turned off the light, and headed down the stairs. As I walked up to the first floor, I noticed the light on in the kitchen. Since I had turned it off when I took the boys upstairs, I was curious. Laura was out with the girls, a recently resumed activity. The girls were office employees of the company Laura worked for before she became a stay-at-home mom when the boys were very young. She had recently returned to work part-time, and with that came the monthly soirees. I wondered why I didn't hear the garage door open, but if there was water running in the house or kids chattering, I wouldn't have been able to pick up on that sound. However, that question was quickly answered when I heard the distinctive sounds of sobbing. When I entered the kitchen, I was struck by a strange sight. Laura was sitting at the table with an open bottle of Jack, a glass of partially drunk bourbon, and what appeared to be a growing pile of used napkins. Her usually neatly styled hair was a mess, and when she looked up at me sharply, I knew immediately that things had gone drastically wrong. First of all, she had the slurred expression that was characteristic of obvious intoxication, a state I had only rarely seen in my usually reserved wife. I was also struck by the fact that her mascara and eyeliner were smeared haphazardly on her face, along with her lipstick. When she looked up at me, her eyes filled with more tears. She wrapped her arms around the table and sobbed loudly. Puzzled by what was happening, I did what most husbands would do. I pulled out another chair, sat down next to her, and put my hand on her back to comfort her. "What's going on, Laura? What's wrong? Are you hurt?" The last question elicited a negative shake of her head, but her tears didn't change. Not knowing what to do, I turned her around in the chair so that I could pull her against me in an incomplete hug. This only intensified her crying. So, I stood up, pulling her behind me, and with both arms wrapped around her full length, I just held her for several long minutes until she got her tears under control. "Are you sure you're not hurt?" In a tiny, inarticulate voice, she squeezed out a no. "Upset? Is there anything I can do to help?" "No." She shook her head. Then I felt her burp, and then I smelled vomit. Before I could do anything productive, she threw up on both of us. Too late to get out of the way, I held on to her until she was done. She must have thrown up somewhere else because the vomit wasn't very large in volume, but the odor certainly was. All I could think about now was the shower in the master bath. Laura is a skinny woman, weighing less than 100 pounds, and I'm 220, so I just picked her up and carried us as quickly as I could to the bathroom. I lifted Laura onto her unsteady legs and began to undress her. The first thing that caught my eye was her blouse, which was missing almost all of its buttons. I threw it into the shower, where I was going to rinse it before bagging it for washing. She was wearing the fancy VSS bra I had given her for our 5-year anniversary. One of the straps was broken, but the clasp in the back was still fastened. I freed her lovely B-cups, which were unfortunately wet from vomit. Her skirt was next, followed by the rest of the VS set: garter belt, hose, and thong. My polo shirt, jeans, and underwear followed into the shower stall. I adjusted the water, rinsed Laura off, and, sitting her down on the floor of the stall, directed the spray at her head. The former occupants of our house had a large dog, and the stall had a hose attachment to wash pets. I used it to rinse our clothes while monitoring Laura's condition. After a long time in the shower, I lifted her onto slightly firmer legs and used the body wash to clean us both. Normally, I like to shower with my wife, as it is the perfect start to lovemaking, but that wasn't the case today, due to her physical condition and too many questions I couldn't yet answer. After drying her off, I sat her on the toilet while I sorted out her wet clothes. Laura was sitting in a semi-conscious state, but I could hear her peeing. Once she was dried off, I carried her into the bedroom and laid her on her side of the master bed. Finished with my clothes, I pulled on shorts and a polo shirt and went back to check on my wife. She seemed to be sleeping peacefully, so I put the wastebasket next to her head and went downstairs to clean up the kitchen. I put a couple of ice cubes in the bourbon and corked the bottle. Now, I had to figure out what the hell was going on. The obvious place to start was with her. I checked Laura's phone and recent messages. She had changed her password, so I tried entering a few obvious choices, birth years, and logged in. I quickly looked through the latest messages from tonight and found that most of them were from the girls, asking if her car ride home from the club was okay. That prompted me to check the garage, and it turned out her car was gone. That explained why I hadn't heard the garage door open recently. There was a text from a guy named Jeremy Parker, apologizing for his attention to her being misunderstood. Being the methodical person that I am, I scrolled through her emails and messages from the past month. I found some pretty detailed dialogue about a club they were planning to visit for a bachelorette party and the relative sexuality of the guys who promised to be there. It seemed that the girls' group now included several guys, either co-workers from Laura's company or salesmen in the same industry. Most of the messages were group texts, but Laura and Jeremy had been communicating privately for weeks, exchanging light flirtation. There was nothing explicit in the conversation, no set date or plans, but it was clear they were both interested in meeting up for a dance or two. It seemed my wife had taken up imitating Ginger Rogers. When I was done reading through the messages and emails, I went back upstairs to check on Laura and the kids. They were all sleeping peacefully. The boys had thrown off their blankets, so I pulled them back up, and as I pulled the sheet over Laura for what felt like the 10,000th time, I marveled yet again at what I had always thought was the most perfectly proportioned body I'd ever seen. Even after 2 children, she was gorgeous. I wondered, in passing, if our marriage would survive the next 24 hours. Needless to say, I hardly slept that night. The next morning, I woke Laura up at 9 a.m. She panicked when she saw the time. "Oh my God, I'm late for work. I've called us both in for individual days off today. The kids will stay with your mom. She'll drive them to and from daycare and keep them at her place until I call her." "Does she know why?" "Yeah. I told her that you and I were going to figure out what made you get high with the girls and apparently act like a... Sir. Oh my God, why did you do that? Why did you act like Sir Laura? By the end of the day today, we will either work out the terms of our divorce or resolve all the issues that caused you to behave the way you did last night." "Where are you getting this divorce talk from?" "I know I had too much to drink, but I can explain." "Okay. I can't wait to hear how the buttons on your blouse came off, how the straps on your Victoria's Secret anniversary bra ripped, and why you wore a garter belt, thong, and VS panties to work." I turned to leave the room but stopped at the door. "I have breakfast ready in the kitchen. I expect you to come down quickly and be ready to explain everything to me. Keep in mind, I've been reading your emails and messages on the family computer, work laptop, tablet, and phone. I look forward to hearing your explanation." Then, before walking out, I added, "I put mouthwash in the back bathroom. Your gagging breath is very unpleasant. There's also aspirin in the medicine cabinet. Take it, you'll need it." 10 minutes later, Laura joined me. She was wearing her favorite lounge clothes, yoga pants that hid nothing and an oversized sweatshirt that hid everything. She also looked like she was walking on eggshells and nursing a headache. "There's toast, English muffins, bacon, coffee, and juice," I said. As expected, she picked at food, but settled on an old home remedy for an upset stomach: toast with mustard. Yellow mustard on buttered toast was a great hangover cure. We sat in silence while she drank 2 cups of coffee and then opened a 16 ounces Propel to help hydrate. Normally, She would be reading emails and messages on her iPhone, but all her electronics were stacked in a pile in front of me. I waited for her to speak. Finally, she looked at me and said, "Thanks for breakfast, sweetie, and thanks so much for getting me cleaned up last night." I don't remember much after the drinking started, but I smelled wet clothes and realized I was sick. From both of us. "I'm so sorry. You always take such good care of me and the boys. I don't know what I would do without you. I hope you don't get an answer to that question this morning," I said flatly. Laura ignored my sarcasm and continued. "Obviously, I was with the girls from work. We went to Parsons because they have dances on Wednesdays, and you know how much I love to dance. Anyway, these guys kept sending us drinks, and I was in a celebratory mood because I had just gotten a big raise at work. I overdid it. It was weird. 1 minute, I was just high and having fun, and the next minute, I was drunk off my ass. I must have danced a lot because my feet still hurt from the heels I wore, and I remember some kind of fight or altercation with a guy. Then nothing, until someone helped me up the stairs and unlocked the door with my keys. I found this note in my purse this morning." She handed me a crumpled piece of paper. "Laura Wilson, we found your address in your purse and are returning you home from our club. Your car should be safe in our parking lot overnight, and you can pick it up in the morning. My wife, Claire, will drive you home because you have had too much to drink. One of your dance partners was being rather rude, and somehow your blouse ended up torn. Frankly, you were out of control, so my wife and I made the decision to remove you from our property and make sure you got home safely. Your dance partner objected, and our bouncer had to use physical force on him. Perhaps you should seek professional help, Tony," Carson said. After reading the note, I took the floor. "Looks like the Carsons saved your ass. You owe them a big thank you." Laura nodded and fell silent. "Okay, here's what we know for sure. You went to Carson's to hang out with the girls and dance with the hot guys. You got really drunk and were separated by a bouncer from a wannabe Lothario. You ended up in such bad shape that the club owner's wife drove you home." "I agree." Laura nodded her head affirmatively. "Obviously, I have a few questions. Let's start with who Jeremy Parker is and when you started dating him." Laura looked at me with a startled expression on her face. "I told you I read all your emails and texts. I'm not dating him. I'm married to you. Jeremy is the new guy in sales, and the girls encouraged me to flirt with him to enter him in the dance competition this week. All the unmarried girls are crazy about him, and the married ladies aren't? Not me. Then why the flirting? Like I said, the girls asked me to do it. I think he told one of them that he thought I was sexy. So your only intention was to get him to attend?" "Definitely." "So he didn't expect to have any luck with you?" "I don't know what he was thinking, but I was just trying to get him to be there for the other girls." "Kind of like you were doing a public service?" Laura didn't answer. "Next, what's with the Victoria's Secret anniversary lingerie? I know you only wear it when you want to show off or do a striptease for me. Why Wednesday with the girls?" "I guess I wear it because it makes me feel sexy, and the girls had a contest. They said I was too old and straight to have any chance of being in it. I guess I was jealous and wanted to show them I wasn't a loser." "Tell me more about the contest." "It was stupid. It somehow took into account how many times you'd be asked to dance and how hot the guy you danced with was. I never fully understood the scoring system, but after each dance, the girls gave each other points. I got drunk faster than I expected and ended up dancing a lot. I may have even won the contest because the guys kept coming back, and then kind of bypassed me. Honestly, Bill, I was in a fog, and all of a sudden, my blouse ripped. I was being grabbed. People were pushing and pulling, and I was crying. Do you think someone could have put something in your drink? Possibly, but until I'm tested, I can't be sure. Well, that might not be possible now since too much time has passed. But I still can't ignore all those flirtatious texts and emails. And then you went out of your way to get close to other men on the dance floor? That doesn't seem like something a committed spouse would do. It feels more like someone trying to show off." Laura was silent for a moment before saying, "I can understand why you'd think that, but you have to believe me. I haven't been unfaithful, and I have no intention of ever being. As for the dancing, let me explain. If you ask any woman, she'll tell you that sometimes men misinterpret things on the dance floor. It's just how it is. Ever since I was a teenager, I've noticed that reactions happen, whether it's friends, acquaintances, or coworkers. With all of them, I step away and make it clear I'm not interested. You, my dear, are the only one I intentionally get close to, until last night. I know it looked bad, but I was being foolish. I wanted to prove to some of the women at work that I'm still fun and confident, not someone who's lost her spark. I made a mistake, and then I made it worse by drinking too much and losing control of myself. I swear to you, my intentions were never inappropriate, and I will never put myself in that kind of situation again. I want to believe you, I said, but I have one more question. Anything. Before the boys were born, we were together almost every night. Even now, it's still often, but not as much. One of the reasons you gave for cutting back was that it made things uncomfortable for you at work. You even used to wear liners every day because of it. But now, you don't wear them anymore, do you? Sort of. Sometimes after my period, but not that often. From under the table, I pulled out the Ziploc bag I had set aside the night before and placed it in front of her. I asked her, "Then why was this in your laundry last night?" It was damp from the shower, but I didn't notice anything unusual. It's simple. It was uncomfortable, and I needed something to help with the irritation. I wanted to believe her. One last thing, your group of friends seems to think that close dancing with guys is acceptable because all guys get excited by dancing with pretty girls. And as long as there's no further action, it's not considered wrong. Is that how your group sees it? That's a rough way of putting it, but I think it's accurate. Then what if I joined a group of men who went out once a month, bought drinks for women and danced closely with them? Would that be okay? Laura shook her head. No. What if your dad and I went out for a drink after bowling? Would it be okay if we attended a party and watched performances there? Tears welled up in her eyes again. I handed her a tissue, and she wiped them away. I know what you mean, Bill. I regret what happened. It would hurt me if you did something like that. I would be devastated. I know I've made a mistake, and I can't express how deeply sorry I am. I also want to take back my complaints from before. I realize now how thoughtless they were. I love you more than words can say, and I want to make things right. I let her sit with her thoughts for a moment before saying, "So, next time we're at a party, and someone flirts with me, I should turn away?" "Yes, because I want to be the one you turn to." She came over, wrapped her arms around my neck, and looked me in the eyes. "Bill, I made a foolish mistake, and I regret it completely. I just want a chance to prove how much I care about you and our relationship." "I'll think about it," I said, "because deep down, I want to trust you." "Please," she whispered. Later, as we sat together in quiet reflection, I put my arm around her. "I always thought our relationship was special. I don't want to think about anyone coming between us. I forgive you, but I need time to move past this." "I understand," she said, "and I'll do whatever it takes to show you how much you mean to me." By the time we got up to prepare for dinner, I felt like we had taken the first step toward healing. Way to replace the dancing image with an image of her smiling in contentment. After I eased her last bit of tension and she caught her breath, she said, "Thank you, Bill, for standing by me despite my foolishness. I hope I can be as generous in my trust as you are. I love you very much. Please know that. I just want to say one thing. In the future, no dance contests. Smartass. Okay, here's the plan for the rest of the day. I'm temporarily out of energy, but I'll be back to full strength by tonight. I'll look forward to this every day that I'm in formation. I'll keep you posted, big guy." Even though Laura had a bit of a headache, we had a nice lunch and then went together to pick up her car at Carson's. They were closed, but we rang the bell in the backyard, where they accepted deliveries. Mrs. Carson answered the bell. "Well, if it isn't the dancing queen. How's the head today?" "Not bad. Luckily, I'm married to the best man in the world. and he took care of me and forgave me for being so careless. You're lucky. I've seen a few other girls in similar situations, and we suspect that Jeremy guy is up to something. We haven't caught him yet, but we're keeping an eye on him. Thank you so much for your concern for my wife. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Just say nice things about Carson. That evening, we picked up the children together from her mother's house, reassured her that we were fine, and ordered pizza for dinner. We bathed the kids together and told them a fairy tale in which we played the roles of Prince Charming and Sleeping Beauty. The kids thought it was a lot of fun, except for what I thought was the best part: the kiss. After tucking the kids in, we headed to the master bathroom to take a relaxing shower together. This one took longer than the last, filled with warmth and laughter. Epilogue. 3 months later, in a crowded bar across town, a tall, reserved man sat down next to a neatly dressed individual. So, are you the Jeremy everyone's been talking about? If so, Sam Houston sends his regards. You know Sam? Yeah, we go way back. He mentioned you've developed a unique way of gaining people's trust. There are rumors about that, Jeremy said. But they say it comes at a price. How expensive? I'm told it requires skill and discretion. If you've got the connections, meet me in the back lot in 5 minutes. No cameras there. I heard Parker ran into some trouble, the man said. Really? Yeah, I heard he got what was coming to him. Some people don't take kindly to certain behaviors. He won't be pulling any stunts again. And that's how it should be. Some people never learn.